Hello, this is just a dive into CapitaLand Integrated Commercial Trust Annual Report 2022, which should have been released sometime this year in 2023 around March, right? A reminder, this is not financial advice and I may make mistakes in this presentation, so please do your own due diligence and consult a financial advisor if you wish to make any investments, right? So we'll just dive into the numbers, right? So nothing much to say except that the large increase in gross rental revenue is basically due to the fact that they merged with the office side, right? So this was the retail side, and when they merged the office side, it just became bigger, right? So that's why they take in more rent. Okay, but because of the bigger share base, now it's just spread among more people, right? So it went. It's a bit unfair to compare this and this because of COVID, I think. So roughly the DPU as a mall is something like that. Then this is COVID affected by COVID. Then it became a mall and retail REIT, right? And you can see that it's still lower than its highest. Actually, this is the highest point, right? So it's still lower than these values over when it was a pure retail REIT, right? So there is a possibility that a retail REIT commands a higher premium than office REIT. Right, but anyway, some notes from the chairman. So he says that there are three things that are potentially a problem, right? Geopolitical tensions, high energy prices, and inflation. Three of which are still a problem today, right? From March to I think now we are in October. These three things are still a problem. On top of Ukraine war, now we have the Israel-Hamas conflict, and energy prices is clearly going up again because of possible oil shortages due to the conflict. And if the conflict spreads, right, then inflation isn't really under control as we hoped it would be, right? So DPU went up 1.7% year on year, which is okay result, I think, because of rising interest rates, right? There are many REITs whose DPUs have dropped. Right, NAV hasn't changed much. Okay, they're hoping to spread out their debt maturity profile. Right, so nothing much to say. Traffic climbed 25% year on year, which is great. Clearly, their downtown malls are affected more by the COVID lockdown, and I think the recovery is just sort of starting into the retail side lah. Okay, so there have been, I think, facelifts in Raffles City, Bugis Junction, Bugis Plus, and Funan, right, to attract new shoppers. And retail revision for rentals in the retail side is 1.2%. Okay, last time it went down by minus 3.2%. Right, later we'll look at this in more detail lah. And occupancy cost for tenants is at 16.6% compared to 18.3%. Right, I would assume this is a function of their revenue. Right, so if occupancy cost is around 16.6% of their revenue and is lower than the year before, it means that potentially the rents could go up, right? And sales has jumped 25% or 22.5%, which is great, right? So I think the key point about this REIT is really the office rental revision, right? 7.6% is pretty good, right? And I think they're shifting to flexible office workspace as per the new office culture these days. Right, Clarke Quay, they are doing an AEI. This is just a slide from the 2021 presentation, whereby I think they showed that Clarke Quay was actually pretty low in occupancy, right, due to expiry of leases. Okay, so I think it's unsurprising it's going through AEI, right? So what's the strategy long term is to have longer debt maturities, higher proportion of fixed rates of debt, right? This is a double-edged sword, right? So it depends on whether interest rates stay at this level, which is I think around 5%, or it goes down, right? So if it stays at this level or goes up, then clearly I think the fixed rates is okay, right? It in fact protects against interest rate going up. But if interest rates goes down, then these fixed rates of debt become a problem lah, because you fix it at a higher rate when you refinance at this time where the interest rate is high, right? So they have hedged their energy tariff rates to avoid further volatility. If I'm not mistaken, earlier they said energy was a big problem. I can't remember where they said it, but yeah, I think somewhere here. Energy tariff rate was almost double from FY 2021. So that's quite a big increase for energy cost lah for the REIT. Yeah, so I'm not going to say too much. Yep. So this Raffles City, I think it's much nicer now. It's more modern looking than before, which look a bit outdated. Clarke Quay looks like they are transforming into a day and night kind of use, right? So that I think they can optimize the space lah. So in the day they use for something, and night they use for something. They could probably make revenue a lot better that way. So this is the design of Clarke Quay, right? So I think they acquired some Sydney properties and divested J Cube and bought Capital Sky, right? And I think this is the reason why the gearing ratio went up, as we'll look into later, right? So I think Capital Sky looks like a pretty new office, right? Completed in 2020, and I think it's 100% occupied. So yeah, if I remember correctly, I read somewhere it's 100% occupied. So it's a good thing, I guess. Right. So retail wise, these are the three main malls. All right. So yeah, they have pretty big malls and smaller ones, right? Versus Fraser Centrepoint, which are all malls. All right. Then there's the office side, right? So these are the offices they have. I think for me, the crown jewel has always been Raffles City, Singapore. I just think it's very centrally located, right? All the MRTs, or at least the two main lines, run through this place, and I think it's a one of a kind of property lah, right? Okay, but you may disagree with me. I'm not absolutely certain that I'm correct, right? But I think Raffles City has the potential for better office rental revisions, and I think possible further recovery in the retail side as well, right? So generally quite high across the board, all right. Yeah, so this is where the rental revisions details are. So if you read the fine print, the retail side is not as good as what was portrayed earlier in the report, right? You can see the downtown malls, the incoming year one rents versus outgoing final rents is actually dipping by 3.5%, right? But because the rents is on an escalating basis, so I think they slowly rise the rent as these incoming rentals stay for longer. So in year 2 or year 3, if I'm not mistaken, on average they sign a 3-year lease, right? So in year 2 and year 3, their rents actually go up, right? So on average, it's still higher than the outgoing rents, right, by 0.2%. This is on average, and this is comparing year 1 rents versus the outgoing rents, right? So overall, over 3 years, I think the rental revision is up 1.2%, but if you look at only for 1 year, it actually dipped by 1.5%, and mainly caused by the downtown malls are underperforming. So the retail side is still, in my opinion, not fully recovered, right? Yeah, so the typical retail lease is 3 years, all right. Yeah, and this is the hope that this will translate to higher rents in the near future, right? With big events like Formula One, if I'm not mistaken, the Taylor Swift concert and the Coldplay concerts coming up as well, right? So yeah, I don't think I'm talking too much about this. The other thing I'm hopeful for is the office space, that it can further improve rental revisions, even above the 7.6%, which is clearly very good, right? Right, so integrated development, high occupancy. Okay, this is debt, right? This is the main worry right now if interest rates rising. Aggregate leverage has gone up to 40.4%. Interest coverage ratio has dropped. None of these things are good, right? But generally, I think they are still very highly regarded by Moody and S&P, right? I think an A3 and A minus is a very good rating for credit. But you can see the average cost of debt has gone up from 2.3 to 2.5%. Clearly, again, not a good thing, right? Debt maturity profile is quite well spaced out, but clearly this is a concern, right? 17% in 2024. How much more will they pay for interest here? That may cause DPU to drop even further, right? Or it depends on the revenue as well as the higher interest cost. If the revenue can rise high enough to cover the rise in interest cost, then yeah, they'll do okay, right? So you can see this is the main reason why I think I would be interested in this mall, right? They are very centrally located. I think everything in the central region sort of belongs to them. Yeah, but I may be wrong. Again, this is not financial advice. Please don't buy based on what I have said so far. Yep, and that's all for this presentation.